At the eastern end of Long Island, where the jaws of the North and South Forks gape, you'll see on the South Fork a creek bounded by barrier spits across the bay from Gartner's Island. We call it Accabonac Creek. Some call it Accabonac Harbor. We are the Accabonac Protection Committee, a group of citizens whose aim is to protect our creek and its watershed, its health and its beauty, for ourselves and for others, now and in the future.
Why organic?
Oh yes, it's time everybody caught on to how easy it is
And how necessary
to
it is.
change some of our habits so we don't poison ourselves and our kids and our pets.
And don't keep over-exploiting our fuel supplies and our groundwater.
Right, and all for a lawn that looks like a Scott ad.
Or a golf course.
And is just one more totally useless cultural artifact.
Well, you mean you can't eat it. You spend a lot of money on it. You never quite catch up with the Joneses, and your dog can get cancer from it.
You can too. Yeah, there was a report that golf course managers had more brain cancer.
That could be true. Anyhow, a high percentage of lawn treatment products are known to be carcinogenic.
Which is worth taking seriously.
Sides, homicide, suicide, pesticide, herbicide. You know what all those sides have in common. Side means killer in Latin. And what's more, the sides we use in nature aren't target-specific. They can kill or really harm other organisms. They contaminate our air and our water. We eat them in our commercially grown food, and we sure don't need them in the lawns we play on. The CDC found pesticides in the blood and urine of 100% of people they studied.
Exactly. So, as we were saying... It's so easy. So what could be wrong with a little step-by-step guide to organic lawn care?
There's more organic fertilizer in garden centers now, for one thing.
There's an organic version of everything you use on lawns, and besides...
Even relatively harmless pesticides.
Besides, a lot of those things aren't even necessary if you use good methods, like building up the soil, not overwatering, and...
Why not take it step by step? First things first.
Our primary objective is to build up a healthy turf by adding every necessary element in organic form, such as compost, dried manure, cottonseed or bone meal, or commercial organic fertilizer. Spring and fall are good times to apply them. Fertilizing in summer when the grass is dormant just feeds the weeds. It's spring, and here's Fred Nagel applying organic fertilizer to his grass with a spreader.
Well, this is my first outing as far as the lawn is concerned. It's just starting to grow now, and so I'm fertilizing. It's it's the middle of April, and so it's a good time, and I'll give it a good coating of the Espoma lawn food, and then again in the autumn.
Most people already have a lawn, and the aim is to improve it. But if you are starting one, you might want to check first how much topsoil you have. See how deep a spade will go into the ground easily. 4 inches of topsoil will make an okay lawn. 8 inches will make a great lawn. If you add topsoil, be very careful to find out where it came from. If it once was a farm field, it could have very bad things in it, arsenic, for instance. Might be better to improve what you have. After digging deeply or rototilling, work organic matter into it, compost being best. If this were a new lawn, the spreader would be a good way to plant the grass seed. The ground would already have been rototilled or dug deeply, and organic matter worked into it, compost being the best. We'll get to compost later. Pick grass seed that has a good chance of succeeding where it is. Fescue is a good sort of grass.
If your lawn is in deep shade and is already growing moss, it is trying to tell you something. This place is too shady for any sort of grass. Think about the charms of a moss garden. Moss is very like a rug, springy underfoot and velvety looking, and it grows without fertilizer, watering, pesticides, or anything energy expensive like mowing. Just don't let leaf blowers loose on it, as it can be blown away fairly easily. Clover, which was always mixed with the best grass seed until chemical fertilizers took over, is now having a comeback. A lawn mixed with clover is the healthiest. Clover retains moisture, puts needed nitrogen into the soil, chokes out weeds, and prevents soil compacting. Another good thing about clover is that it stands up very well to being walked on. Where there is some traffic, the clover will gradually predominate over the grass.
In our part of the world, unless you have the luck of dwelling on rich farmland, chances are your soil is acidic. And some limestone will not hurt it. Here's Fred spreading limestone. If you're concerned about the pH of your soil, which is to say, the degree of acidity, get a simple little testing kit like this one and make sure. Something around the middle range is good enough. Building up your soil fertility will tend to correct the acidity too over time, so don't worry about it too much. Another benefit of that fertility is well-nourished grass that resists fungus and insect attack. Then you can resist the temptation to use fungicides or pesticides, 2 of the most carcinogenic lawn treatments we have. And that goes for tick treatments too. Anyhow, only about 2% of the insects in your backyard are pests. Most are beneficial. One important reason for using organic, slow-release products is that the nitrates, for instance, are absorbed by grass plants as they are released instead of having a chance to leach down past the roots and into the groundwater we drink, or run off in rain and end up destroying life in a pond or creek.
You too can make compost.
Oh yes, it's really easy.
Not the directions you read in the garden section.
Look, ignore the complicated directions. Nature has been composting for as long as there have been plants on Earth, about 450 million years or so, and it goes on doing it anytime it can. And forget all those additives supposed to speed up the process. Everything you put on your heap brings with it the seeds of its own destruction, bacteria, fungus spores, etc., being everywhere. And what's the hurry? Here's last year's compost heap. We have removed the chicken wire containment that was around it and raked out everything that hasn't rotted. That will be the bottom layer of this year's heap. Now here's this year's heap. Mostly it's sticks, undecayed leaves, and so forth. Corks and avocado seeds, in my experience, will never rot. At least in one short lifetime. Why bother to put them in the first place? Here we are adding leaves and weeds from spring garden cleanup and kitchen garbage like those grapefruit hulls. No, they do not smell and rapidly disappear under new layers of material.
So you don't even have to look at them. You can see that these heaps are inside a garden fence to protect them from animals, so even meat scraps can go in with the garbage, supplying nitrates to balance the carbon of the leaves. If the leaves greatly outweigh the garbage, restore balance by adding some manure. Sometimes you hear that meat scraps can't go in a compost heap. Well, nature has for eons turned everything that dies and falls to earth, plant and animal, back into earth. So what are you afraid of?
And here's your final product. It's worth its weight in gold, and it smells so wonderful, you'll want to just inhale the fragrance of it. If you can spare some from your vegetables or your flowers, how grateful your grass will be for a sprinkling. And speaking of gratitude, any organic lawn has lots of earthworms in it, working away at making their own compost and helpfully spreading it on the surface while they aerate the soil. Hats off to earthworms. Thanks, guys.
Watering your lawn. Here in the East, with fairly good rainfall, we shouldn't have to water lawns constantly. Yet we use about 30% of our water on that. Compared to some parts of the West, where it can be as much as 70% due to drier air and year-round lawns, you might think this isn't too bad. Still, shouldn't we be using our own diminishing water supply for more life-sustaining reasons? We know that there's a golf course in the depths of Death Valley, and if you haven't seen the lawns in the desert of Las Vegas or Phoenix, you have a shock coming. Are they crazy? And our huge aquifer with the supposedly unlimited amount of water in it, according to Sarah Malin, renowned hydrogeologist, only a small percentage of the water in that aquifer can actually be pumped out of it. It's a shame to waste what we have, especially to make the yard look good. Don't you hate to see those sprinklers busy watering lawns while it's raining? I always wish I could run over and turn it off whenever I see one. And they run them much too often. Grass needs water when the blades begin to curl. Water grass infrequently and deeply. That causes the grass roots to go deep into the soil. When the top of the soil dries, the weed seedlings up there die, and the grass enjoys water from its deeper roots. Another perk, every time you water, you wash away nutrients, so the less you water, the more fertile your soil remains. Sometimes when soil gets very dry, it will repel water. So if it looks really dry, it may be good to water a ½ inch, wait for an hour, and then water another ½ inch. If you put a container in your sprinkler zone, you can measure the depth of the watering. Just check it with a ruler, and when you have 1 inch total in the container, you've watered enough. Mowing your lawn. Before mowing, be sure your mower blades are sharp enough to give a good, consistent cut and not damage the grass. If possible, don't mow when the lawn is wet. It makes for a very uneven cut. Operating a typical gasoline-powered lawnmower for 1 hour produces as much smog-forming hydrocarbons as driving a car almost 200 miles. The EPA says that 17 million gallons of fuel are spilled each year while refueling lawn equipment. That's more than the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska. If your lawn is not too large, give a thought to the good old hand mower. Not only are real mowers quiet, their cutting action snips the grass like a pair of scissors. Rotary mowers tear at turf, leaving it bruised and more open to disease. So set your mower blade 2.5 to 3 inches during the growing season. You can measure a mown blade of grass against a ruler to be sure it's a good length. When temperatures cool and fall rains begin, slowly lower the height so the lower grass can dry off faster. After mowing, to make your life easier, not only can you leave your grass clippings on the lawn, it's actually better for the lawn to leave them. It recycles nutrients and organic matter back into the soil. To sum up, here's your whole grass plant. Like all plants, it manufactures its own food in its leaves. Minerals and water brought up from the earth by the roots are converted to sugars by the sun's energy. This beautiful process can be stopped if any of its elements are missing. Not enough water, not enough minerals, or not enough leaf surface. This is why you are warned not to cut more than 1/3 of the grass blades. With 2/3 of the grass blades gone, the grass may survive for a while, but it needs to regrow its food factories. With cool weather and water, this can happen. But if it gets hot and dry, grass normally becomes dormant and growing is not on the agenda. These grass blades should have been allowed to get longer before hot weather. They are too short to shade the roots and the ground. Then watering to keep the grass alive just stresses the plant more. You would never treat a flower plant in your garden this way. Grass is able to turn brown and die back, to return to life when conditions are better. If cutting, drought, and heat continue, though, the roots themselves can die, and the grass plant can even blow out of the soil and roll away like a tumbleweed. When herds of animals produce this effect, they call it overgrazing. What about the leaves?
Trees return all the elements they draw from underground to the soil by shedding their leaves, nature's fertilizers. Do you want to throw that rich source away? Never forget that leaf blowers are air polluters just like lawn mowers. It's such a joke to see a man with a leaf blower chasing 3 or 4 leaves around, when leaves up to a point do no harm at all. Besides, a leaf rake gives you some fine stretching exercise. If there are not too many leaves on your grass, you can mince them up with your mower and let them stay to turn into mulch and then fertilizer. If they are way too thick for that, there's an easy way to make them into compost. A 4-foot square enclosure in a corner of your property is plenty. 4 metal posts hold up 5-foot chicken wire. Which is light and, as you see, easy to wire on. Then fill it by piling leaves on a tarpaulin and dragging them to it. An amazing volume of leaves can be gradually added if it's watered or rained on and sprinkled with chicken manure so they can compact down. Probably 3 to 5 times the volume of the enclosure will easily disappear into it in time. Usually, these leaves will be compost in about a year, although oak leaves may take longer. And don't forget, you can leave large areas of your yard to grow tall grasses. Mowing only the places where you walk or play croquet or exercise the dog. It needs no watering, needs no poison, no polluting lawn mowing, shelters many species of beautiful animals and insects. Why not try it?
Here you see a nice walk through tall grass that invites you to explore it. Tall native grasses only need cutting once a year, late spring being ideal. If not too big, your tall grass area can be mowed by scythe, an excellent form of exercise, incidentally. Exotic grasses have become very popular lately, since they give maximum decorative effect with minimal care. Just be careful not to plant Chinese silvergrass, which is Miscanthus sinensis. It is an invasive species with wind-blown seeds that will rapidly take over a field or a neighborhood and then be pretty much ineradicable. You have to dig it up to be rid of it. We hope that Miscanthus will soon be added to a county no-sell list, along with other dangerous plants.
Everyone in East Hampton loves our beautiful town pond with its swans and the green that surrounds it. Isn't it great that the green is completely organic? The village and East Hampton town both have mandated that public grounds be cared for organically. No poisons. We can be glad that these cygnets are in no danger.